who's our other colleague, and he's not here. He's with his kids today. He's done a lot of the tick thing. Well, we've looked in areas where there's a dense, the understory is almost pure barberry. And there's roughly 120 ticks per acre, which are carrying Borrelia burgdorferi, the causal agent of Lyme disease. In a forest without barberry, there's approximately 10 ticks per acre. So your risk of running into a tick is 10 times higher than a stand with barberry. And that was one of the incentives for Tom and I, beside the fact that we like having fun, to start looking at using flame torch. And it's probably not just barberry. What we strongly suspect from working out, although we haven't been able to document it, our stands with multiflora rose are probably also carrying the black-legged or the deer tick. It's interesting, in other states where they have a lot of honeysuckle, we don't have as much here, but where there's honeysuckle, they've looked at it, and they found that they have the ticks there actually there's more ticks which are carrying ehrlichiosis in areas with a lot of honeysuckle, and that's another nasty one to come down with. So one of the things that Tom and I and Scott Williams have looked at over the years is how to control, these invasive species, which are also definitely a risk for human health, not only for ourselves, but for our children, for those of us who are lucky enough, our grandchildren, our pets. So how can we get rid of it? And there's certainly a herbicide option. What Tom and I were going to talk about, and what Tom's going to demonstrate, are some non-herbicide options. They take a lot longer, to be frank with you, but if you've got a small area, or if it's an area which has some species, some wildflower species you want to protect, you're not going to want to go out there with herbicide. Or I'm sorry, I came in late, so I didn't catch your name.
Oh, I'm Heidi.
Oh, no.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Tanya.
Huh?
Tanya.
Tanya. What Tanya's talking about, that bucket, if you've already got things, you're probably not going to want to be using pesticides as much. So sort of how can we come up with some non-herbicide options? Herbicides work great, but what we're going to demonstrate now are some non-herbicide options, so I'll let Tom take it from there.
The analogy this morning is, you heard Jason Elias first thing this morning talk about the difference between taking care of the garden, taking care of that environment, and the use of medications that attack like a machine gun, if you will. And the analogy is that broad-scale herbicide that we could spray on the foliage out here to control multiflora rose is also going to kill a whole bunch of everything else. And seeking out options, as Jeff just mentioned, might take more time, might take more cultivation, might take more care, but the whole idea is to establish an environment that's non-conducive to the invasives that harbor these ticks, that in turn harbor the disease vectors, or the tick themselves as the vector, but the diseases themselves, and provide a competitive advantage for the natural vegetation. And it takes some work. Lyme disease, babesiosis, ehrlichiosis, it all comes from insects. It all comes from tick bites, for the most part. And if we can reduce the number of ticks in the environment, then hopefully we can reduce the risk, if you will, of contracting these diseases, particularly where human beings are likely to go. In their yards, in their gardens, in the forest trails, in the recreational areas, and that sort of thing. And we find that it's where these edges are, where these openings into the forest are, that we get the biggest concentrations of barberry cover or multiflora rose cover and that sort of thing. So we've been, having had the experience of working with Jeff in the woods on a whole different project, we found ourselves covered with ticks every day, and it's, the one thing that's common about all these sites is this barberry, and we're trying to control barberry, and we realized that in other places where we were working on controls of other things, that we weren't seeing as many ticks as we were in the barberry. So, we have established this connection between ticks and barberry, but we also believe there's connections with some of these other invasives as well. So this is just a little demonstration of one sort of cultivating type of activity that people can undertake on their own property in their own woods to reduce the incidence of things that are not desirable. The invasive plants are kind of like those invasive critters, those invasive organisms that get into your body. They get into your woods and they find a great place to live and spread and so forth and so on. So the analogy is there. As Jeff mentioned, herbicides work great, but they come with some risk factors, and one needs to be very careful about how they're used, and one needs to protect themselves from the chemicals and so forth and so on. And while herbicides are very effective, it's not something you take really lightly. And when you do make a choice to use herbicides, you want to do it in a way that's judicious, that minimizes the amount you need to use. And part of our research is about what seems to be optimum. And you may hear us talk about a two-step approach where we went into barberry stands and we cut some plants, we cut an area of barberry and let it resprout, and then went back and just hit the sprouts with a little touch of herbicide rather than spraying the whole. Had we sprayed the whole thing all at once, yeah, we would have killed the barberry, but we would have killed everything else on the site. Whereas this way, we could target, those particular plants. The technique we're going to demonstrate. Go ahead.
Before you get into the technique, when you remove the barberry, do you have to prevent growth of similar type things? Because you said there's other plants. I would imagine it's the microenvironment that the ticks like, not particularly the plant. So what do you replace it with something, or mulch it, or
In the woods, no. There's.
But we're talking about the interface. I guess I was thinking in my mind, yard, woods, surrounded by wood, that interface where they're hot.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say Dr. Kirby Stafford at the experiment station has done some work on that. One of the things he's found is if you put in it's at least a 3-foot wide wood chip barrier.
Right.
Ticks actually, believe it or not, are very susceptible to drying out. The reason why they do so well in rose, the reason why they do so well in barberry, is those are very humid environments. All those layers of leaves transpiring all the time put a lot of humidity into the air. When it dries out, the ticks actually have to drop off where they're questing and go down into the leaf litter so they don't desiccate. If you put down a mulch barrier around your yard, if you mow your grass to keep it a little bit dry, although this year, I can't believe my grandkids are picking up ticks in my yard and we mow the yard. But if we did mow the yard, you can imagine how many ticks you'd pick up. So part of what we're doing, what we're going to show you here, is ways that you can go out there and try to start converting it, cultivating and gardening, converting to native species which have much more open structures. So the open structures don't have the humidity. And I just wanted to get this in case it starts raining, show you. I believe this is on the announcement. You had the link to this. We don't, unfortunately, unless somebody wants to donate $500, we're out of copies.
But you can download a PDF.
You can download a PDF. And everything we're talking about out here is actually in here with all the little handouts. So the link to this is on the announcement for this.
Okay, so it's on the speakers page, wasn't it, in your
Yes, it
file?
was, because
Yeah.
I picked up one, but I don't know where.
Okay.
I don't think there.
So if you go to the speakers page and
Yeah, you can download
download
the
it
PDF on it and print it out.
or is it on the homepage?
I thought it was on the homepage.
Oh, then
What would
it's
you
on one of those.
recommend for the public schools in Albany, Schenectady, and Troy? They put down some damp white bed sheets while the kids were in school.
They put down what?
Wet, damp bed sheets
Where?
on the playing fields of the schools while the kids were in school. I was in a support group in Albany. They met once a week.
I had never heard of putting down.
And they picked the sheets up and they were loaded with ticks. So
Well, they
the
were
support
loaded with.
group didn't know to go to the authorities and say, kill the ticks on the playing field.
The one thing that Dr. Stafford's looking at right now,
They were worried about kids getting exposed, so they kept their mouth shut.
well, what they're actually looking at now is I believe it's going to come out on the market next year. It's actually a fungus, which they can spray out there, which attacks ticks. It also attacks spiders, but it's a fungus, so it doesn't affect anything except arachnids and ticks, arthropods like that. So they're actually, I mean, it's legally it's a pesticide, but it's pretty safe. It's like putting, you know, the old BT powder out there, a bacteria to kill things. So that will be a great alternative, which hopefully is going to be on the market next year.
And you mentioned them drying out. I've had people say they've seen ticks on their clothes, put the clothes in the washing machine, ticks survive.
Ticks will survive a washing machine.
They do not survive the clothes dryer.
They don't survive the clothes dryer if you put the clothes dryer on heat, not just air fluffing it.
Yeah.
Can I make a suggestion? If we can do the demonstration and we can continue inside with question and answers, because
Sure,
it's starting to rain. And
Sure.
This was not supposed to happen till 4 o'clock.
I
Yeah, we would have moved.
I've been wet before. The plants, barberry, multiflora rose, any plant like that, if you cut it, it'll send up new sprouts. If we cut the cherry tree over there, it'll send up sprouts. It always resprouts. So just cutting alone is not going to control things. You have to go back and cut repeatedly. When it sends up new sprouts, it draws on reserves from the roots. And if you cut it again, it draws more reserves. You can exhaust the plant by repeated cutting. That's one way. That's a lot of work. As we mentioned, you can poison the plant with herbicide. But if you can find a way to place a stress on the plant that it basically doesn't expect, isn't used to, you might be able to cut it and then stress it and kill it. And this is what we try to do with the flamethrower here. And
What character are you now?
You have to be very strong. That's heavy. I mean, I can just see me arming myself with that and falling over back.
Well, one thing, I just want to give a couple safety things. It's going to rain, so I'm going to make this really brief. It's like with a chainsaw. Don't use it until you've had training. And you might want to step away. There's poison ivy here, so we're going to have poison ivy smoke.
Are we really doing that?
Farmers have been using it forever, but it's a bad plant.
It's a rose?
It's a multi-flower rose.
That's right. Roasted ticks.
Yeah, farmers use it.
basically what he's doing is he's aiming the flame at the base of the plant, not so much to kill the upper part of the plant, but to kill the cambium layer near the bottom, and also to kill any basal buds that will result in resprouting. Okay?
Wow.
Now, if we were to have cut this and have it resprout and then flame it, it would have taken a lot less time, you know, to do the flaming part.
This is a rather spectacular.
Do you sell them? Poison ivy a foot from your feet.
So
Yeah, see all my neighbors doing this. Right there's a neighborhood. She hires them.
Tom found one back there. Just a
They
second.
have way too much fun.
Tom, you want me to get that? You can walk it back and show them the park.
Yeah, what does he do? It's really nice.
Are they chocolate or just water?
Yeah,
Oh, the
always
what?
think this is water.
Putting the fire out?
No, this is just water there.
Yeah. They make babies. I'm thinking,
So
oh
that's-
no, it's round up.
I mean, the good thing is we are going to get a good storm.
So what they didn't tell you was you don't do this on a really dry day.
I wonder if you need a permit. Do you need a
No, you don't.
Where do you pick up the equipment?
If you Google flame red dragon, you can find it.
Flame Red Dragon?
Just put in red dragon
Oh, really? Okay.
and propane, it'll come up.
How long does that
That's
tank
great.
last, or can you buy a tank that's smaller?
You can't get a tank that's smaller. We went to 25, the big 25-pound tanks with a 30-foot hose. There's a guy in Vermont that's got 400-pound tanks in front of a tractor and a 50-foot hose.
Okay, that's a smart way to go.
Yeah.
That's a
What?
little
Can you see an example of what barberry?
I'll tell you what, so we slowly walked out. Tom said he didn't see one earlier.